Listen, I hate to say this, but South American football is in big trouble. But don't worry, because there is an unexpected hero. There is a way to get them to trend in the right direction and to fix it. And that unexpected hero has a name. Its name is CONCACAF. And I know you may disagree with me and you may think this is crazy, but once I explain it throughout the video, you will very likely agree with me. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to sound overly dramatic because there's still a ton of talent in South America for all of the countries pretty much, or most of them, right? Bolivia doesn't have that much, but Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, Uruguay, there's a ton of talent. But CONMEBOL as a whole, when it comes to national teams, the Confederation, and clubs, they're trending in the wrong direction. But don't worry, I'm a smart guy. I'm a very, very smart guy. And I have a plan, a possible solution, or shall I say, a suggestion. Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Chapéu Football. And today, I want to talk about CONMEBOL and CONCACAF, and how if you want CONMEBOL to start competing with UEFA once again, and I'll show you the stats and the data, they're not really competing with UEFA anymore. They need to elevate their level to compete like they did in the past. They do need to partner up with CONCACAF more often. And understand, this is not a merger, it's a partnership. And I have many suggestions, many different ideas, and it would actually benefit CONMEBOL and CONCACAF over the short and long term. And yes, South American football does need to be saved. Whether you agree with me or not, it doesn't matter. That's a fact. Throughout the video, I'm going to start by giving you facts and data to why it's declining. South American football is on a decline. After that, I'm going to give you my proposed solution of how CONMEBOL and CONCACAF can work together on the national team level and club level, because there are two different approaches, so you're going to want to stick around. So if you live in South America, Central America, or North America, this video is for you. Don't forget to drop a like in this video if you haven't already. It's a great way to support the channel for free, so just do it right now. I'm waiting. Just do it. Like right now. And let me know in the comment section down below, are you for CONCACAF and CONMEBOL partnering up together, merging? Should the Americas combine? Because to me, that's the only way to compete with UEFA. All right, so before we start, we have a quick word from the sponsor of this video, Temu. Drop a like in this video. Do not go anywhere. We'll be back very soon. And this video is brought to you by Temu. And you know what? In the past, many people told me that the products on Temu were bad quality because the prices just felt too good to be true. But none of that is true, because the quality is actually good and the prices are even better. Go check it out yourself. And if you download the Temu app and use the promo code CON8868, that is KON8868, you can access a $300 coupon bundle. Again, that is not a free $300. It's a $300 coupon bundle, which will unlock site-wide discounts in the Temu app. But you don't really use the promo code on the checkout. The correct way to use the code is in the search bar. And once you do that, you're set. You can just scroll around and find whatever product that you want. Now, keep in mind that you can only claim this code once, and it's only valid for 24 hours after you claim it. And Temu also has sports collectibles, sports cards. They have portable soccer goals, so if you have a son or a daughter, you can buy that and go play with it in your backyard. And it's so easy to take it somewhere that you can also take it to a park, you know, in case you don't have a backyard. And all of these have great prices. Again, go check it out yourself. And listen, I collect Pokemon cards. And at Temu, I can get 100 top loaders and 100 sleeves for less than $10. So download the Temu app right now and use the promo code CON8868 on the search bar. And thank you very much, Temu. All right, so why did I say that South American football needs to be saved? What was the very first data point that I used to even make such a claim? The first one I looked into was World Cups. Now, the first 17 World Cups all the way till 2002, we had 9 South American countries win it. 9 CONMEBOL nations won the first 17 World Cups, and only 8 UEFA nations won it. So more than half went to South America. Now, from 2006 till now, which is the next 6 World Cups, right? 2006 till 2026, we had 5 UEFA nations win these 6 editions, and only one of them was won by a South American country, which was Argentina in 2022. Is that not alarming? I mean, the World Cup is the main data point where you judge the national teams. And there's a direct correlation to what happened to football as a whole in the 90s, where UEFA started to draw more and more money. They started to sign more and more talent all over the world, and their revenue started to skyrocket, right? The globalization of the game benefited UEFA more than anyone else. Believe me, they're making more money than ever. And that improved their infrastructure, scouting, youth development, and resources. And you're going to say, money's not everything. Well, you're right. It's not everything. But when you have the talent, you need the resources to develop them to the best of their ability, to the highest of their potential. And nowadays, UEFA is miles and miles ahead of South America when it comes to any of that. Investment, infrastructure, revenue, what else? Resources, scouting, professionalism, everything. And believe me, that is the main reason why the gap between UEFA and CONMEBOL has become so big, and why the UEFA nations have been doing better than the CONMEBOL nations. It's true. So that was the first data point that I looked into, and there's a lot more to talk about. So now let's go to my split screen. That way I can better show you more of my points and opinions of why South American football is on a decline when compared to UEFA. And then later in this video, I can talk about the solution, not the solution, but the partnership that should happen between CONCACAF and CONMEBOL, why it should happen, how it should happen, and how that can elevate all of the Americas, right? If we get this partnership right between CONCACAF and CONMEBOL, if they learn how to work together over the course of 15, 20 years, I could see the Americas competing with UEFA, because we will have the talent, the money, and the resources. So for this next section of the video, let me talk about all the South American nations specifically, so you can see how we're all trending in the wrong direction, right? You may say they're improving, but the reality is the future ain't looking that bright. Okay, so there's a lot to dive into. I'm going to put on screen here the table of World Cup qualifying for CONMEBOL, just so I can touch upon the situation of every national team here so far, right? Because we're going to go through some actual data and stats of why I believe South America is on a decline. But let's just talk about these national teams. So Argentina, they made it to the final of the last World Cup, but I made an entire video. This team is on a decline. Now, this doesn't mean Argentina is going to be shit. They're not going to be shit. They're always going to be very competitive. But I showed you guys a lot of reasons why Argentina in 2030 is 100% not a title contender for the World Cup. Something they have been in 2014, 2018, 2022, where they won it, 2026. They're not title contenders. This was a team that in this World Cup, it was an aging generation led by a 39-year-old Messi, that they had a very easy pathway to the final. And when they finally faced, well, they beat England, but when they finally faced the best team in the world, they sucked in the final, Argentina, and they're not getting any younger. I know people are going to say, but they have Barco, they have Nico Paz. Guys, that's not Messi. That's not even Di Maria, right? This is a team on a decline, Argentina. Are they still going to be good? Of course they're going to be good. They're no longer title contenders. Again, check out our latest video. I went into details in regards to Argentina. I'm not going to keep expanding upon it here. Ecuador, a national team, many are going to say they're on a rise, and to a certain extent, you're right. Right? This is a national team that recently has developed players like Piero Hincapié, Moises Caicedo, William Pacho, a lot of defenders and defensive midfielders. They still haven't cracked the formula to develop forwards. And even if Ecuador develops, like, let's say, 2 or 3 good wingers or a center forward that can finally replace Ener Valencia, they're not title contenders in the World Cup. This is a team that can potentially be a dark horse in the future if they can find a way to develop players that can actually create and score goals, which I know they have some talent coming up, but until proven otherwise, Ecuador is just a promising team until proven otherwise. Then you have Colombia, a team that we've seen them have a ton of talent many times, and they just can't really figure it out. Like in the 2026 World Cup, I thought they were going to be the dark horses, and then they fell in the round of 16. Colombia, right? Luis Diaz, an aging James Rodriguez, and they had Luis Suarez up top, the Colombian Luis Suarez, John Arias, Richard Rios. They have many good players, but again, not enough to go far in the World Cup. 1994, they flopped as well, so I don't know what to say there. Uruguay got grouped in the past 2 World Cups. Uruguay. And I'm just not seeing enough good talent coming up on Uruguay. They're going to say, oh, they have some good talent. Not at the level that they used to. They don't have a Diego Forlan. They don't have a Luis Suarez coming up. They don't have even a Cavani coming up. So again, Uruguay in a very hard decline. You can blame Bielsa all you want. I'm just not seeing it with the national team. Brazil, Well, Brazil's an interesting one, right? They have a lot of talent on the winger position, center back position, goalkeepers, kinda. No fullbacks. They struggle with the fullbacks. Brazil's midfield also very limited from a technical standpoint, believe it or not. No center forward. Brazil hasn't defeated a European team in a World Cup knockout game since Germany in 2002 when they won it. So, could Brazil be a contender for the 2030 World Cup? Maybe. But as someone that is biased towards Brazil, I'm not seeing it with the new generation. Okay, I'm just not seeing it. I think Brazil will be in a similar situation to Argentina in the next World Cup, where they will be competitive. They'll be tough to beat. They could make it to the semifinals, the quarterfinals. I just don't see any of those two being actual title contenders for the 2030 World Cup. Then you have Paraguay, a team that fights hard. They punched above their weight in the 2026 World Cup, but it's not even the best World Cup Paraguay's ever had. They did better in 2010. Bolivia, altitude merchants, lack talent a lot. Venezuela, they lack talent. Peru, they looked better a few years ago, like 6, 7 years ago. They're not looking good recently. And Chile, they had a golden generation like 10, 15 years ago with Alexis Sanchez, Jorge Valdivia, Medel. Who else was in that team that I can remember here? Regardless, Chile had an incredible Vidal. Vidal is another name that comes to mind. They had an incredible golden generation. They won 2 Copa Americas, and the current Chile team is abysmal. And their youth, like coming up, is probably as bad or worse. So we're done with that. The situation's not that good at the teams. And listen, you can disagree with me all you want. Most of the things that I said are facts. Okay. You may disagree with the Argentina one more specifically, but I made a whole video about it. Go check that out yourself. And make sure to drop a like in this video if you haven't already. Now, let me pull this up. So, this right here, what you have on screen, is essentially the performance of every single South American nation combined in World Cup history from 1930 all the way to the 2026 World Cup. And as you can see, obviously, the older World Cups, they didn't even really have a top 16. Why? Because there were less teams playing in it, right? There were World Cups that had 12 teams playing in it, 16, 24. It wasn't until I think 1998 that they started to have 32 teams. And I think it wasn't until 1986 that they started to have 24. So let's go from 1986 till now. I marked it there on screen, as you can see. 1986, the World Cup in Mexico. As you can see, it's pretty normal for South America to have 4 teams in the top 16 all the way till from 1986. The few times they didn't have that was in 1994, but Brazil did win that World Cup. 2002, Brazil also won that World Cup, and 2006, which one can argue 2006 was the worst World Cup that South America has had in modern history. 2006. But look at this. From 2010 beyond, the performances weren't bad. From 2010 and 2014, South America had 5 teams in the top 16. In 2010, we had 4 teams in the quarterfinals, 1 team in the semifinals. In 2014, we had 3 teams in the quarterfinals and 2 in the semifinals and 1 in the final, which was Argentina. And then in 2018, 4 South American teams made it to the round 16, 2 made it to the quarterfinals, but then everyone was eliminated there. 2018, we had 2022, you had 2 teams in the round 16, which was obviously Brazil and Argentina, 2 teams in the quarterfinals, 1 team in the semifinal, and a champion, which was Argentina. Now, when you look at 2026, every single South American nation, all of them were eliminated in the round of 16. All of them. Besides Argentina, of course, that made it to the final. We haven't really seen that ever. If you look here, they always had at least 2 in the quarterfinals. I guess here, 2002 and 1994 were the worst ones, where just Brazil advanced and won both of those World Cups. But again, the only team that made it past the round of 16 was Argentina. Brazil lost to Norway, Paraguay lost to France, Colombia lost to Switzerland, so they didn't even lose to top teams. Argentina was the only one that advanced. And look, I'm here just to call a spade, whether you like to hear this or not. Argentina had an easy pathway. They played Cabo Verde, they played Egypt, they played Switzerland. If Argentina had faced a tougher opponent earlier, or at least 2 of them, they probably would have been knocked out early. Okay, like to hear it or not, that's not a fact because I can't prove it. But this was one of the worst World Cups we've seen from South America. I mean, in a long time, right? Since I guess 2006. But then they bounced back in the next few World Cups. And recently, if you think about it, the team that has been carrying South America has been Argentina in terms of World Cup performance, because Argentina made it to three finals in the past, what, four World Cups, 2014, 2022, and 2026. They made it to three finals. They lost two of them, but they have been carrying South America. And my question to you is this: are things improving? Like, is Brazil going to carry this federation? Because if you look at 1994 and 2002, you could argue Brazil was carrying it, right? I don't see Brazil carrying this federation in 2030. I'm not seeing this rise. And I'm seeing Argentina decline. I'm not seeing Colombia rise. I'm not seeing it with Ecuador yet. And all the other nations I talked about, Uruguay on the decline. So when it comes to national team, it's pretty evident when you look at the results, right? You look at the results. Don't be surprised if in the next World Cup we have zero South American teams in the semifinals. Would you be surprised? I wouldn't. I mean, I hope Brazil makes it far. Argentina, I doubt it. Maybe Ancelotti can figure things out with Brazil, but I wouldn't be surprised. But it's not just that, right? Let's talk about club here for a second, because one way we used to measure like European clubs versus South American clubs was the Intercontinental Cup. And what you can see here on screen is the data from like the 60s or even 50s, I think 60s, all the way to 2004. And as you can see, there were South American teams that would win it back then. Peñarol, they won it three times. Boca Juniors, three times. Nacional, three times. Independiente, two times. Santos with Pele, they won it two times. São Paulo won it two times. So there were, Olympia even won it. Grêmio, there were many South American nations that would win it. It was actually very balanced. If you look at the top teams that have won it, Milan won it three times. Real Madrid won it three times. Peñarol, Boca, Nacional, Independiente, they won, well, not Independiente, but up to Nacional, there are three South American teams that have won what was the Club World Cup at the time, the same amount as the top Europeans. It was extremely balanced. If you go back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, even the 90s, it was extremely balanced. Things started to change in the 2000s, right? And I want to bring this up. In the 2000s, they started to change. The process started in the 90s because the European league started to get richer and richer. And they started to sign up all the talent, improve the infrastructure, scouting, resources, everything I talked about. But here's the 2000s, right? When they changed a little bit the Club World Cup, there was like a special edition in 2000 in Brazil where the final was Vasco and Corinthians. So let's skip that. So then 2005, we had this new edition of the Club World Cup, which is not like the one that you saw in 2025 during the summer, that incredible one that Chelsea beat PSG in the final with 32 teams. This one had less teams. So again, São Paulo defeated Liverpool in 2005, and Internacional defeated Barcelona in 2006. So when we go to 2007, all the way to 2025, okay, so all these editions here from 2007 all the way to 2025, which was the one last year where Chelsea and PSG played, right? The Club World Cup. But then you had Man City destroying Fluminense and all that. The only time a South American team won it was in 2012 when Corinthians defeated Chelsea 1-0. So when it comes to clubs, there is a massive gap between European clubs and South American clubs. Now, obviously, there's South American talent playing in European clubs, a lot of the main players, right? But we're also seeing the decline of the national team. But the clubs, it's pretty damn evident. And if you go to the 2025 edition, which was the Super Club World Cup, the one with 32 teams, that was wonderful. The final was all European. And if you watch that edition, you would see that there's a big gap between the European clubs and the South American clubs. And I think ultimately it mainly comes down to money. Because if you look in the past, there wasn't that big of a money gap in the past, believe it or not, mainly because the sport wasn't professionalized the way it is. So you go back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, even the 90s, it was very close, the clubs. I would even argue the South American clubs had a slight advantage at times. And same thing goes for national teams. As I said, for the first 17 World Cups, all the way to 2002, South America won 9 and Europe won 8. And then from 2006 to 2026, we had 6 editions. UEFA won 5. And South America with CONMEBOL won 1 with Argentina. And you may be wondering, why are you talking about CONCACAF being the savior, right? We're going to talk about this potential merger here in a second, but let me bring this up. And I know this, what I'm going to show on screen is going to be data that I pulled from AI, but don't worry. I did fact check this data. So AI Did a good job here. Sometimes AI does a good job. Sometimes it doesn't. This time it did a good job. Hopefully you do a good job now by hitting the like button. But look at this. So the 2025 Copa America was hosted in South America. And the total prize money for that Copa America that CONMEBOL paid to the national teams and the federations, which that money comes into the federation, they can reinvest in the sport in the country. Again, you can say there's corruption, there's this or that. Sorry, we have to find a way to fight corruption. But for you to invest in the sport, you need money to flow in. Whether it's going to go and fall into the wrong hands, that's a different discussion. You had $10 million total in prize money for the 2015 Copa America that was hosted in South America. Then in 2016, it was in the United States of America. The prize money jumped to 21.5 million. That's more than a 100% increase. Why? Because it was in the United States of America. Now, mind you, the reason the prize money wasn't even higher was because US Soccer organized that event. So they took most of the money. So CONMEBOL didn't have all that money. That's why in the 2024 edition, the prize money was much bigger, right? And then 2021, that was, I believe, hosted in Brazil. The prize money was lower than the one in the US. Even though throughout these years we had a lot of inflation, the prize money was lower. And you may be wondering, where's the 2019 Copa America? I couldn't find the data on that. It was never disclosed. So we don't have the data for the 2019 Copa America that Brazil won. Now, in 2024, that was hosted in the United States once again, the prize money was an incredible $72 million. That is more than a 3x increase from the 2016 one, which was the biggest one ever. $72 million. Now, mind you, that's still a very big, there's still a very big gap between the Copa America and the Euros. The Euros has a total prize of like over $300 million. I think 350 roughly. So there's still a long way to go. But do you guys see why I'm saying that a partnership between CONMEBOL and CONCACAF can benefit both of them? Why is that? Well, CONMEBOL needs money. They need a lot more money to invest in infrastructure, the resources, everything. Look at that. Look at how much more money flows into CONMEBOL when you add countries like the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Now, obviously, you have the other CONCACAF nations, but the other thing I want to say is countries like the United States, Mexico, and Canada, they also raise the competitive level of CONMEBOL. The US, Mexico, and Canada right now, they're better than Peru, they're better than Chile, they're better than Bolivia, they're better than Venezuela. Honestly, they might be better than Uruguay right now based on World Cup performance. So they will compete and they will elevate the competitiveness of CONMEBOL as well and bring in all that money, right? Essentially, it helps both because both confederations make more money off of it. Um, but CONCACAF, like the top teams of CONCACAF, they need more competitive games, right? They need more competitive games. They need to play Brazil. They need to play Argentina. They need to play Colombia, like the US, Mexico, and Canada, because CONCACAF is very weak as a whole, right? Most countries are not very good. Costa Rica occasionally has a good team. Panama can be competitive from time to time. Jamaica sometimes. But ultimately, US, Canada, and Mexico are the only teams that are really competitive right now. And they can bring in the money that CONMEBOL needs. A partnership is crucial. Now, I'm not for a merger because a merger would be very complex. But now that you understand why they need this partnership to compete with UEFA long term, they need more money and competitiveness flowing in both confederations. Let's talk about how this partnership or slight merger would work because it is different when it comes to national team and when it comes to club. All right, because the logistics are very much different. So let's talk about this partnership. Okay, so how would this partnership work? And understand there's two parts to this question, right? One is with the national teams, the other one's with the clubs. Let's start the national teams because that one's a bit easier than the clubs. The logistics with the clubs and the amount of games they're already playing the season makes it very complicated. And there's a small partnership that they could do, but let's talk about national teams. The first one is the most obvious one. Every single Copa America should have 10 CONMEBOL nations and 10 CONCACAF nations, 20 teams. Okay, that should be every single Copa America. Now, it doesn't always have to be hosted in the United States. You can host it in Mexico, Brazil, Argentina with Uruguay, whatever partnership you have to do to get it done. But every Copa America should be every 4 years, not that mess that they used to do where it's like Copa America in 2015, 2016, 2019, 2021, just do it whenever they want. No, the Copa America has to be every 4 years. Scarcity makes your product more valuable every 4 years, and the Copa America should have all of the Americas. You have the 10 CONMEBOL nations, and then CONCACAF can do whatever their qualifying method that they want. It can be a ranking system, whatever they want to do. You get 10 CONCACAF nations, okay, with one host nation every 4 years. That is my opinion. It doesn't always have to be in the United States. Obviously, you'll generate more money if you do it in the US, if you do it in Mexico or Brazil. Those are the biggest economies in the Americas. But it doesn't have to be always in those countries. You can rotate, you figure out whatever you want to do. If you want to do always in the US, that's fine. If you want to generate more revenue, I don't care. So that's the most obvious one. The Copa America every 4 years with 10 CONCACAF, 10 CONMEBOL nations is a must. And there's absolutely no excuse for that not happening. The tournament becomes better. More people watch it. More money comes in. It's more entertaining. It's just a no-brainer. Will it compete with the Euros? The Euros still has a big edge, but it is a very attractive tournament to watch, and that's what they should be doing. The other thing I think that they should incorporate is actually a Nations League of the Americas. And let me explain what do I mean by that. What you see here on screen right now is the CONCACAF Nations League. Now, you're not going to see the US, Canada, Mexico, because they're the top ranked teams, and they are already qualified to the quarterfinals of the Nations League A, which is the first division. Nations League A is the first division. Nations League B is the second division. Nations League C is the third division. So as I said, Mexico, US, and Canada, they're already in the quarterfinals because they're the top-ranked teams. Now, if we were to combine and do a Nations League of all of the Americas, like UEFA has for all of Europe, it would be awesome. Okay, and in that case, the US, Mexico, Canada, they would not be already qualified to the knockout rounds. They would have to play the group stage. And within these leagues, A, B, C, you have promotion and relegation. So what we should have is a Nations League of all of the Americas. You put the 10 CONMEBOL nations here as well, and that would be amazing with promotion and relegation. And you're going to be saying, how does that benefit anyone? Well, in general, you just raise the level of the competition. You increase the revenue because now you have the top countries of CONCACAF like the US, Canada, Mexico drawing in attention, money. You have also the smaller nations, which are going to get more money, and it's going to help elevate the floor. You're going to increase the floor of CONCACAF over the long run. And you also help the CONMEBOL nations, where more money will flow in. They will have a meaningful competition. Listen, if you're from CONMEBOL, is this not going to be better than Brazil playing a freaking friendly with India, for crying out loud? This will be actually competitive, and it'll have promotion and relegation. If you suck ass, you're going to get relegated. And let me tell you, some teams from CONMEBOL would probably get relegated. Peru, Chile, they could get relegated. Bolivia, if they'll get results in the altitude. Outside of that, they'll struggle. So my other proposal here for national teams is a America's Nations League. All of the Americas, Central, North, South, everything. That is my other proposal. Okay. And again, that's not that hard to do. You can set up the logistics. If a CONCACAF team is going to play one South American team away, you put all of their games from that window in South America. Then the other one, you have the South American team playing North America or Central America. It's not that hard to do during the FIFA windows. So this is very doable. A America's Nations League. All right. That's the other idea that I have with promotion and relegation. And then you're going to be saying, what else for national teams? That's it. That is all that I would do when it comes to national teams. You're going to say, what about World Cup qualifying? No, I wouldn't do it for World Cup qualifying. World Cup qualifying for now, keep it as it is. And if the America's Nations League and the Copa America is going well, you can eventually have a full-on merger one day. And then when you have that merger, you can do World Cup qualifying with all the nations. Okay. My main issue with World Cup qualifying is you have to figure out the logistics in terms of home and away, but you could do it like the Nations League. If a team from, let's say, Canada or the Canadian national team was to play Chile, If they have to play another CONMEBOL team, have them play also Brazil in the same window so they don't travel from South America to Canada, essentially. So it can be done. I just wouldn't do it right now for World Cup qualifying. But in the future, you can do it, right? You can do it in the future. The first two things I would do would be that Copa America every 4 years, 20 teams, 10 from each confederation, and an America's Nations League. Then we can talk about World Cup qualifying after. And all that would benefit both confederations. Now, when we talk about clubs, very often I see people talking about just let's bring back the Mexicans to the Copa Libertadores. That's not a bad idea. Mexican clubs will raise the competitiveness of the Copa Libertadores. They will bring in money, and it's just good for both, for Mexico and for CONMEBOL, the teams in CONMEBOL. The tournament becomes tougher and richer because the Libertadores has been struggling, right? Brazil has been dominating. Brazil's won 7 of the last 7 Libertadores. The problem is that's not a partnership between CONMEBOL and CONCACAF. We want to elevate both. And for that, you would have to have CONCACAF teams qualifying also for the Libertadores. And that, when it comes to club season, will be a logistical nightmare. The Vancouver Whitecaps, they've been doing kind of well in MLS, the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Imagine the Vancouver Whitecaps qualify to the Copa Libertadores. All of a sudden, you have a team in Argentina having to travel to Vancouver in the middle of the season for one game and then back. So for clubs, I don't think CONCACAF and CONMEBOL working together is logistically sane. If you want to put Mexican clubs in the Libertadores, I think it would benefit the South American clubs and Mexico over the long run. But that doesn't solve everything for the confederations. But I do have an idea of something they used to do that we can start a partnership between the clubs. And if you build a culture around it, good marketing with social media, over the long run, it can work. And look at this. In the past, we had this thing called the Copa Interamericana. This used to exist. It existed from 1968 to 1998 for 28 years, and it got abolished, right? It didn't work. It failed, even though it lasted 28 years, which is a lot of time. And then many people are going to say, well, if it didn't work, why are we going to try this again? I think nowadays there's been such a heavy immigration to the United States of America that if you host this with MLS teams or even in Mexico, because with Mexico it would work regardless, right? They would pack the stadiums, but in the US it would also work. And in South America it would actually work. But it has to be something like this. It has to be a home and away game, just like they had here. If you look here in the past, most of the time it was the Mexican team versus an Argentine team, Paraguayan team. There was a Brazilian team against DC United, Vasco versus DC United in 1998, and DC United won. You need to put a very big prize money, and you have to do a game called the King or the Kings of the Americas, which will be a two-leg final between the winners of the CONCACAF Champions Cup and the winners of the Copa Libertadores. One game played in North America or Central America, one game played in South America. Like, for example, Flamengo won the Libertadores. Let's say Inter Miami won the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which they did not. But let's say they won it. You'd have one game in Miami and one game in the Maracanã in Rio de Janeiro. Trust me, those two would sell out. And if you do that once a year, if you do the right marketing with social media, all of that, it'll bring a lot of money. And honestly, it sounds like a very fun event. Don't you agree with me? The King of the Americas, the winner of the CONCACAF Champions Cup versus the winner of the Libertadores. And you're going to say, the winner of the Libertadores will destroy them. That's not true. Mexican teams historically give teams from South America a very hard time. And if you go back even to the Club World Cup, Inter Miami tied Palmeiras, right? They tied Palmeiras. So it would be a good game, home and away. It would be interesting. And it would be one way to start a partnership among clubs. Okay. And some of you are going to say, we already have that. We have the Derby of the Americas. This right here. Guys, that's just a bullshit FIFA game for that Intercontinental Cup that they do. That is no longer the Club World Cup. It's like the semifinals between a CONCACAF team and the Libertadores champion, the CONMEBOL champions, the Libertadores champions versus the CONCACAF Champions Cup champions to see who plays like the European team in the final. right? That's not really what I'm talking about. That's like in one place, one game. I want a game marketed as the Kings of the Americas. And with that game, you play one home and one away in the middle of the season, the champions of the Libertadores, the champions of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Believe me, it would do well. You would probably watch it. I would watch it. It would do well. It would sell out. It would make a ton of money, and people would love the event. It would be an incredible event, which over time it can become a cultural phenomenon, right? It can become an event that everyone looks forward to every season. But anyhow, those are my main ideas of how they could start a cooperation. Again, I don't think the logistics make sense to include CONCACAF and CONMEBOL in the Libertadores. Maybe Mexico, still tough, but maybe. Anyhow, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Don't forget to drop a like before you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you think CONCACAF and CONMEBOL partnering would be a good thing? And if they do everything that I said in this video, would maybe in 15, 20 years, would they be able to compete with UEFA? Okay, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Ciao.